Hello, Whitewater students, and happy Monday. This video today is the fourth video, and I'm going to be talking about some of the themes and topics we'll be looking at, and just giving you a brief introduction to them. I'm going to kind of set them up like mysteries, try to make them sound more intriguing, uh, make you wonder more about where they might lead us in our research. So, questions about Canvas, and particularly about submitting the first assignment. When I went to research and answer for you, it was clear that they had made significant changes to Canvas over the summer, and it would just be easier for me to look at a number of instructional videos on Canvas. They're ones that I've seen before, but it sounds like they've made some changes, so it always helps me. I learn more on a second viewing of these things sometimes, or I'm able to retain the information better. So I'll review some of those Canvas things and have those answers for you for the next few days. So let me introduce a few of our classes, topics, themes, things we look at. They're kind of all over the place, some of them. So let me offer a little bit about this and a little bit about that and get us started. First of all, let me solve the mystery of why I had a ceramic penguin on my shelf at the office. Uh, it has to do with penguin books. So maybe a little bit easier to see that here. Still Penguin. After World War II, Penguin Books, their British publisher, made a lot of great literature, not just fiction and novels and poetry and drama, but also history, sociology, religion, philosophy, definitely the classics of the past. They made them available as paperbacks, which was much cheaper than how books would have been available in the past, say in the 19th century. It allowed this information to disseminate, and they would publish great writers from all over the world, um, histories of India. It was like they were. Penguin had a good book on every subject at a good cost, and it was also true that this is changing a bit in our day and age, but um, especially cities would have these used bookstores where these books, including many penguins, would kind of recirculate. Penguin books are tough little books, and you could buy it for a reasonable price, read it, and decide maybe I'll sell it and get some money for it, and then somebody else would be able to buy it for even cheaper. So I'm sure I didn't pay more than $2 for this copy of Graham Greene's novel, A Burnt Out Case, about a leper colony in Africa. And I wanted to buy all the Graham Greene I could in my 20s. And I wouldn't have been able to afford it at $20 a shot, which is about how hardcover books used to cost. But $2, go into a used bookstore somewhere and be able to own a copy afterwards and use it. So the whole Penguin theme ties to this. My friends realized that I loved Penguin books, and they started to buy me Penguin sheets, Penguin pillowcases. Especially after I divorced, I kind of needed everything, so I got Penguin um, dish towels and that Penguin, the ceramic one in my office. So that's the mystery behind penguins in my office. All right. Um, Iphigenia, a story from Greek myth that you may or may not be familiar with. Definitely wouldn't be included in Greek myths for kids because it's kind of a disturbing story. Greek um, myth has it that Iphigenia is the daughter of King Agamemnon and Queen Clytemnestra. King Agamemnon was chosen to be the ruler of all the united Greek forces that were going to sail from a place called Aulis to Troy to initiate the Trojan War. Uh, Helen of Sparta had either run away with or been kidnapped away by Prince Paris of Troy. And the Trojan War was fought, according to the story, to get her back, get Helen back. So, how does Iphigenia's story fit in? Well, she's gets a letter from her father saying that she should come to Aulis, and there she will be married to Achilles. Well, oh, and she's also told, leave your mom at home, don't let her come along. Well, the mother, Clytemnestra, was quite a strong-willed woman, and there was no way she was going to miss her daughter's wedding, especially since she was to marry the hero Achilles. So when they get there, it turns out there was a trap. Uh, the goddess Artemis supposedly has demanded that King Agamemnon sacrifice what he loves most if he wants the ships to be able to sail to Troy. She stopped the wind. There's no wind, and they can't sail. And the wind will not begin to blow until Iphigenia is sacrificed on the sacrificial altar to Artemis. So it's a grim story. It has an interesting sequel too. What interests me most about all this is who's doing the telling. Euripides is this writer who comes kind of late in Greek civilization. He's retelling the same stories, but boy, do they feel different from his point of view. He has the story of Iphigenia begin. We're kind of looking over her father's shoulder. Well, that story of a child being sacrificed would look very different if it was your child. Right? How did child sacrifice go on for all those long centuries in so many different cultures around the world? It must have been that the community as a whole viewed the child one way, and it was only the parents who maybe thought, oh, I don't know if I believe in child sacrifice anymore, now that it's my child who's going to be sacrificed. Um, where is it tied to our class? And this is something I'm exploring a lot in my book. I think that there's almost an uncanny resemblance uh, in the stories of Joyce Carol Oates to some of the scenarios, situations that I see in the plays of Euripides. I think it's accident. Although Oates did know ancient Greek tragedy, she seems to have studied the other tragic playwrights, Aeschylus and Sophocles, in her youth. So it's more of a weird kinship that she has with Euripides. She oftentimes will look at the world from the point of view of the victim, the person who's going to be sacrificed. I feel she tells Iphigenia's story in some of her works. And in the sequel that Euripides wrote, Iphigenia is whisked away and saved at the last minute, and but also has to live in exile. And that is a pretty common theme in Oates' work. That a young woman is exiled from her family, uh, and how that is kind of a way of spiritually suffering a death, even though the body lives on, and of course the soul oftentimes survives. So one of the themes we'll be looking at in Oates is, a number of the stories is survival after tragedy. I guess you could see it as being there in Golden Gloves, right? The tragedy would be his being knocked out uh, in the ring, and then the rest of the story is about his survival. And she's really interested in that idea that we survive tragedy, but how do we survive it? Are our souls intact, or has our soul suffered some kind of uh, impairment, some kind of, maybe even to ourselves, they feel a kind of soul death of sorts, and how are we to go on from that? All right, another figure we will be talking about. We'll listen to some music. So let me briefly introduce two figures here. One day I was shopping for records, and I saw this record, and I thought it was a record that I did not yet own and had never seen before by a singer I kind of like named Etta James. And then I realized this person was kind of glaring at me and saying, I'm not Etta James. And I looked closer, I thought, oh, it's true, you're Etta Jones. So who is Etta Jones? If you would try to research her on the internet, it would be a little bit frustrating that the internet would keep trying to push Etta James into the picture, where she doesn't have any place there. Etta James is a kind of a more of a early rockabilly singer, blues. Beyonce played her in a movie, so she's more famous. Etta Jones, a very different artist, more of a jazz artist like Billie Holiday. So we'll look at what her perspective on things is. We were watching the Umbrella Academy. Maybe you guys know that show. And we were rewatching season 1 with my mother-in-law. And during an action scene, the familiar chords of Nina Simone playing the piano and singing Sinner Man. Now, what intrigues me about this is that's the third time I think that her song Sinner Man, and they take a snippet of it and they introduce it into something to give drama to the scene because it's a very dramatically performed song. It's on our syllabus. It is 12, 13 minutes long, so I'm actually making listening to it optional. It's further down the line. But it cracks me up that if you take just a moment of it, a few minutes of it, it is very dynamic. I find the whole song compelling, but not everybody likes to listen to longer jazz tunes. So there's a number of mysteries. Who is Nina Simone? She was popular and successful during her lifetime, but since her death, her popularity has just gone up and up, and people take her far more seriously, I think, as not just an artist, but just um, commentator on American life. Uh, she is sampled a lot by artists today, um, by Kanye West not so long ago, and she is having documentaries made about her. So she's an interesting research subject. I think it's interesting to see how someone endures, um, how their legacy endures, and continues sometimes to grow more complicated. I think that's the case with Nina. And you guys know we're going to be talking a little bit about Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean Baker, and how the more times her story is retold, the more dimensionality it takes on. And that's certainly true after um, the Joyce Carol Oates novel Blonde that I've been talking about a little bit. All right, these books here on these shelves, these four shelves, almost all of them are by Joyce Carol Oates. She's written nearly 100 books. I have even more at the office. I've read a great percentage of her books, probably around 90% or so. And more importantly, I've reread a lot of Oates novels, stories, poems, and I always get a lot more on rereading. That's why I'm enjoying teaching them because you guys will see things in the stories that I don't even see. So, um, again, it seems to me that with Joyce Carol Oates, the more I look into her, the more mysterious the stories become. And this person, Greg Johnson, wrote a biography of Joyce Carol Oates, and he called it Invisible Writer because he kind of feels that it's not really easy to tell who she is from her books. They're very vivid, they're very descriptive, and they take us places. But she herself is like this, eye, and she's had a kind of what would seem to be from the outside kind of boring life. No drinking, alcohol, no drugs at all. During the 1960s, she didn't participate really in the counterculture. Um, she had this seemingly quiet life, but the books that she produced are so explosive, and even more so oftentimes when you return to them. And I found, like I said earlier, that when I juxtapose them to works of the ancient world, there's an uncanny kind of similarity in certain ways, a kind of steadfast, realistic, show me the worst, I can handle it kind of approach to life. She was on the Oprah show one time with her novel, We Were the Mulvaneys, that Oprah had picked for a book club selection. And Oprah was expressing some frustration with the book. The mother in the book, We Were the Mulvaneys, allows her daughter to be sent into exile, even though the daughter is really the victim. And this is a book from about the 1970s, when some things like date rape were perceived differently than perhaps hope think they're perceived today. And they had a discussion with Joyce Carol Oates and Oprah talking about it. And Oprah was really upset at the mother for letting this happen, let the daughter be sent into exile when she was innocent. And she said that if she had written the book, she would have not written it that way. And Joyce Carol Oates, who was there, said, "Well, but it's a little bit more like Greek tragedy, isn't it?" And Oprah, who, this is hilarious, said, "Exactly. I hate Greek tragedy." And, you know, there you go. There's a difference in sensibility. What I think is funny about that is I think it's very sweet that Oprah gives people wonderful gifts like cars because I know that she knows real deprivation and need in her own life as a child. And this is how she turns things around a bit. She's a believer. She's an optimist. She gives people hope. She gives people gifts. That's Oprah. Oates, Joyce Carol Oates, uh, is a very different being. She also, I think, has given back enormously to her readers, but she gives kind of in the opposite fashion, doesn't she? She gives you the starkest version of the truth. History sometimes is nightmare, um, so that we can say, "Well, that was part of the story, wasn't it?" Um, right, I think that's enough little mysteries. My video went longer than I expected to, too, but I wanted to put some ideas out there for you guys to think about. We'll meet soon and begin our dialogue.